This is my project pitch for my final major project. My project is going to be a podcast. Over the past 2 years, I've been studying a UAL qualification at Global Academy. Over those 2 years, I've been able to gain valuable work experience at companies such as IMG, Capital Extra. I also helped to produce a podcast on our school platform, School Days. While spending my time at these two places, I've been able to build interpersonal skills and the ability to work in a team, the ability to lead a team, time management skills, flexibility within a team, ability to empathise with others, and develop my listening skills. I also developed some hard skills as well. I was able to learn to edit on the Adobe package. I'm able to drive a sound desk. I can adjust sound levels in real time, and I'm able to record audio. I also have knowledge of a radio studio. All of this came together to help me decide to make a podcast. I'm going to create a non-fiction narrative style podcast, and it's going to be called In the Boot Room. It will take a look into various different roles behind the scenes of the footballing world, and will contain interviews from various different industry professionals. My goal is to create a professional sounding podcast that would engage with the top levels of football, as well as the casual fans of the game. Another potential aim will be for my future employers to view the podcast and hopefully see what I'm able to do. The target audience I'm looking at will be casual football fans from the ages of 14 to 35. I know that it's a large demographic and that it is very broad, but I feel that football is a language that everyone is able to speak. I think the audience will be largely male, although it won't be restricted to that. It's going to use like quite laddie language. Also, it's going to be aimed at my potential employers, which has no demographic. So it's going to be hard, but I think if I make a good quality piece, they could see who it's aimed at and be able to give me a chance from there. The platform that it's going to live on will be Spotify, iTunes podcast, and SoundCloud. I'm going to get on Spotify and Apple Music's podcast by using a thing called Anchor, which is how you can get it up onto there. I also use SoundCloud. The difference is that Spotify you have to pay to listen to podcasts, whereas SoundCloud and Apple Podcasts is a free streaming service, which means that anyone can listen to it. I'm also going to promote it on social media via my Facebook and Twitter and Instagram. Hopefully I'll get the school's Instagram to promote it as well, which would see a few more viewers. I'm going to try and exploit a gap in the market. I like a lot of podcasts, but I think there's a lack of narrative in storytelling podcasts. I feel there are a lot of football podcasts, but I feel I may be able to get the cutting edge if I make a narrative one. I think a lot of them are kind of talk show based. They're very funny, which I may not have, but I'll be able to bring a lot of factual content and provide the viewers or listeners with knowledge. I'll also be able to give further insight after I've completed my research portfolio. I will be able to tailor my podcast more specifically to find that exact niche and that exact gap in the market. The main influences was probably the first podcast I listened to, the Joe Rogan Experience. I think it's funny. I think he gets the right guests in, and it's just a really good podcast. I also influenced by 442 magazine, which is like a fun style football magazine. I've been reading it since I was a kid. I love the articles they do, and that's how my one's kind of going to be based. It's going to be more fun, light-hearted, but also factual, giving you some knowledge. Also, Science Solved It. I like the way it flows. It's going to be like mine, like a narrative style. I'll take inspiration from their kind of introductions. I think they do those really well. They're going to be using interviews like I do, so I think it's a really, really great podcast. Potential problems that may occur. Technical issues is the first one, because I'll be using audio devices. I think there's a lot of room for things to go wrong. Also, not being able to get my desired guests. Just because I'm so young, I don't work for a big company. I think people aren't really going to want to listen or to what I have to say about it, but I know a few people and I think I can get around it by getting some good quality guests. I think some of them aren't well known, but I think if they have the right information, then it can still make for a good podcast. Also being incapable of leading my guest to share the correct information. So when I write a question, I would have an idea in my head what it's going to sound like, but unfortunately they might not always answer it in the way that I would like them to. To counteract that, I will probably get them to elaborate if they haven't, or get them to kind of word it in a different way. Also, corrupted audio files maybe a problem. That's always a problem. I'm just going to double check. I'm going to save all of my devices in two places, all of my files in two places, just to make sure that they can't get corrupted. I've saved it on a USB and on the computer's hard drive. Also, my lack of experience will be a problem, just because you never know what's going to happen, and I've never been in a situation really where it's been kind of me all alone. So to get over that, I'll just speak to various mentors and try and get advice from people if I ever run into a problem that I haven't thought about. Also, copyright law. It's hard if I do well and I use copyright music. So to get over that, I'm going to use royalty-free music. Measuring success. Success for me doesn't really mean loads of listening numbers. It just means creating a high quality project. So I think anywhere between 100 to 200 listens or interactions with my project would be really good. I'd measure that using the streaming service to see how many people have listened. I would also like to see it on the school radio station as well, just to get it more publicity, and only the good work goes on the school radio station.